Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at Marcus Garvey Park for this year's 2023 Harlem Week Festivities. Pianist, composer, and educator Jason Moran tonight is performing a very, very important tribute. Jason Moran is performing a tribute to the great James Reese Europe. Now, as you might know, James Reese Europe was very, very important because he had a very important infantry during World War I. The 369th Infantry, as you might know, the Harlem Hellfighters, the 369th Infantry, really introduced jazz music to Europe during World War I. Now, James Reese Europe hails from Washington, D.C., but he moved to New York City when he was 20, and he became a prolific composer as well as a person who was an advocate for musicians. He started the Clef Club for musicians, and he was one of the first African Americans to compose music at the famous Carnegie Hall. Now tonight here on the Pace Report, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Jason and reflect on the importance of James Reese Europe. Also, we sit down and reflect on the compositions and what it meant for him as a person during the 1920s to be an advocate for musicians, as well as encourage musicians not only to write, but to compose and perform their own music from a black perspective. We also sit down and talk about his tragic death, as well as how now in 2023, this man is very responsible and influenced a legion of band leaders during the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights. Sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights. Jason Moran performing from the Dancehall To The Battlefield, a tribute to the great James Reese Europe. It's part of Harlem Week here in Harlem, New York, here at Marcus Garvey Park. Got the Pace Report. Jason, thank you again for having me, man. Congratulations on Harlem Week. This is important because I remember years ago we had chopped it up and you had said that you were going to do this project. But this project stems from one of our elders who sat you down in his home in Brooklyn, God rest his soul, and he kind of planted the seed that now germinated into this project that we're seeing tonight.
Yeah, that's right, for real. Randy Weston, bless that brother. But yeah, he sat me down in his home and said, I want to tell you about James Reese Europe. And I kind of heard the name, but not really. And for the next 4 hours, he gave me like the Randy Weston lecture on James Reese Europe. And it was deep because, you know, older cats, when they want to sit you down and tell you something, they don't want to waste their breath, you know. And Randy also had his own James Reese Europe project up until he died. He was performing this project of his own. And so he was saying like, nah, man, this work is present. Like, James's devotion to black people and black music is a present activity, you know, and we received that fruit. So there was something about it. And then so when my project started, then I thought, oh, and Randy passed, then it also, you know, really like you said, oh shit, we really need to do this.
Carry it on.
You have to. You have to.
Now, for those who are not familiar with this gentleman's legacy, this man did a lot in Harlem. He's really the cat that introduced Black American music, jazz, in Europe. And he also was a cat that put ragtime and his compositions on the map too. And he was an advocate for the musicians, the union. This man did a lot.
Yeah, he didn't see a limit to it. You know, I always say that one of his first signs is when he's young and playing violin in Washington, D.C. He's taking lessons from Joseph Douglas, who's the grandson of Frederick Douglass. I always like saying that because you got to put into the lineage that there's kind of abolition codes, right, in the music, in music making and teaching music from one generation to the next. So James is a recipient of that knowledge bank into how he's then trying to play the violin. And then as a composer here in New York, he understands like, okay, in the early 1900s, the way black folk are portrayed on stage, that's not really who we are. So how do you try to change that? And he continues to modify the model over his time here in the city. For those 20 years up until his death, he was trying to make it right for black folks on the stage and off the stage. And the Clef Club is kind of like the shining emblem of that work.
thing that I like about what he did and what he contributed was, one, like you said, there was no boundaries to what he was doing. It was infinite. But the education of the music, when World War I, he's not only a soldier, but he takes his infantry to Europe and France. They connected with this too. What was the music that he was playing and the compositions that he was playing at that time that really got everybody overseas just awestruck what he was doing?
You know what I felt like people heard was, right, so he's bringing like this kind of marching band, right? So he's adapting that marching band material. That marching band stuff is real stiff, you know, but James Reese Europe is known as the king of syncopation. So then he's also accenting all these rhythms that's like our stuff. And when I think the French hear it, they're like, yo, what's happening? Why does the music feel this way, you know? What's in it that I can't stop hearing, you know? And it's all that kind of mashed together. And he has musicians who are at the top of their game, technique-wise too. So you're just hearing like a lot of excellence at once, you know? And it overpowers people's racism, let's say.
Right.
And then by the virtue of that, the music ends up having such a deep kind of relationship to the continents around the world, you know. But it shows up as trying to save somebody else's ass, right? You know, they brought that music to assist in a war against the Germans, you know, fighting on the side of the French. And so that's a very kind of, you know, like full of valor, full of kind of heroic nature that I don't necessarily all have, you know. Maybe when I play the piano I do, but I think these people put their bodies on the line for something they believed in, maybe something that when they came back here that they would hope would kind of return to their people.
Now his 369th Infantry, they were the Hellfighters, and they're from Harlem. Yeah. What was the treatment like for James when he came back from World War I?
It was incredible. You know, in the piece here, you'll see this incredible parade welcoming the troops back to New York City. Coming off of the boat, coming down the Hudson, walking up Fifth Avenue. They came up Fifth Avenue, right up here to Harlem, you know, in 1919. And it was a tremendous, 1918, a tremendous moment. And so there was a heroic welcome. The city shut down, massive parade, you know. But when they left, when they went to go fight the war, they walked across 125th Street. Barely anybody was out. The report said the band didn't sound great, you know, like a kind of like a humble departure, but a heroic return. And then they went on this tour and they recorded this one record that they have, you know, which you can hear now of that band. And the sounds that they brought back from the war, the songs that they documented what the war sounded like. It's incredible. And then he was murdered, right? And then the history becomes something much larger.
Right. And it's very poignant that we bring up that U.B. Blake said he was the Martin Luther King of music.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah, it is heavy. I mean, because he gives so much, you know, like there's one thing about being, you know, standing upright, but it's also in the generosity that he had and the kind of compassion he had for people around him. And I think that's what's felt in the music too.
That came here before you, who you owe every heartbeat to, every smile, every curse, all of them. Hung for their soul. One more time. Thank y'all so much. We love you. Once again, my feet race, Logan Dickinson, Brian Settles down.
This album, From the Dancehall to the Battlefield, which is a tribute to James, I noticed that there's different sets of songs and compositions that you chose to revision. How did you start the process of revisioning these songs?
I mean, the good thing is we have that record, so you can hear what the band sounds like, and then you know that you can never get to that, right? So that's a good, like, I can get off of that train of trying to recreate it, because that's not my intention, it never really has been as a musician. But there's something in the seed that I want to understand, so I have to kind of go into the nugget of the songs. What are these 3 W.C. Handy songs that James liked to play? St. Louis Blues, Hesitation Blues, Memphis Blues, right? Like, what is it about planting the blues in these big marching bands? What's that about, you know? Well, let me try that, you know? What are these songs like Castle House Rag, songs that he wrote for this dancing couple? What is it to try to think about dance music today, and can I make something that like would sit in the side of a groove the way that he sat in the side of a groove 100 years ago? And that's kind of where it started, you know? Like, just trying to find just that one little part that I could obsess about. And there's a lot of great moments in the music, so it was easy to find the moments.
I saw a picture that you posted on your Instagram page, which is heavy. I grew up in a house where Duke Ellington was like God. My grandfather adored Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn, and there's a picture of him at his grave.
Yeah.
He influenced the dude. Yeah. He influenced the legion of band leaders.
Oh yeah. I mean, and there's a photograph. This photograph is Duke Ellington standing at James Reese Europe's grave with a wreath in 1932 or 33. So this is Duke. Duke is famous. You know what I mean? So we see Duke Ellington always in, like, you know, dapper,
regal, yeah,
regal, right? Slick, piano, right? But do we ever see him in, like, kind of paying homage? It's very rare. So this one photo is just him standing next to the grave. It's really heavy and tells you how important James Reese Europe is, because then you see, like, Duke is there, like, he's there very solemn.
This is what's up.
This guy did it so I could do it.
Right? And he's paying homage to one of his native homeboys from by way of DC. That's interesting.
Very important.
Tell me some of the musicians or band leaders that were influenced outside of Duke Ellington.
I mean, you know, like, great thing about James is he didn't take all the work himself, so he had a crew of people around him, most notable U.B. Blake and Noble Sissle. And they, I think, continue his work, especially on Broadway in the 20s. They really find a way to put the stories on stage. So they become the next wave. And then I think every big band that comes after James Reese Europe, because then you think about Ellington, right? And you think about Count, all of that grows to a size because James had that large ensemble. So we got to hear, like, what that was. What did Jimmy Lunsford, what did these bands try to hear? But James had set the scale up for what will become the big band. And so that's why I say a lot of us, we sit in the glow of his light. We may not have ever said, "Thank you, son," you know what I mean? So this is just an opportunity to do that.
And Noble Sissle wasn't he part of the Infantry also?
Yes, he was.
He was. So they have a strong lineage as well.
Noble and James were in the war together, and U.B. Blake stayed home. He ran the band, and they would just kind of mail correspondence back and forth to each other, and that's how that's how stuff survives. You know, all of us can't be at the same place at once.
Right. I'm really proud of what you're doing down in DC, the Kennedy Center. And the first time you played this music was at the Kennedy Center. And tell everybody, tell my viewers your role, what you're doing down there, and what you're trying to do as far as revision and presenting black music to a younger generation.
Well, I think, you know, luckily, Dr. Billy Taylor, who started the position at the Kennedy Center, I inherited that role from him. Because what he wanted to make sure was that the institution recognized the power of black music in DC. So he said, the Kennedy Center needs to wake up. And it needs to be in here all the time. And so what I felt I could do was coming in as I was maybe 30, I don't know, 36, 37 when I started there, was that I could think like, well, considering my point of view, that maybe also hip hop is a part of this, you know? But also that, you know, Anthony Braxton and Cecil Taylor are a part of it too. Like that our music is very wide, and not all of it is popular.
Right.
You know what I mean? And to give space for that, and to give space for incubation of new concerts and commissions, right? So we help commission Wayne Shorter's opera. We help commission Cecile McLaurin-Salvant's Ogress piece. Like, we are in the activity of making sure there's a new canon too. And that feels like carrying the role that Billy Taylor wanted to accomplish when he invited me there as a young artist. And so I feel like, I hope I'm carrying his torch high enough so that he can still feel the heat of his flame.
Yeah, when I saw the Nas with the symphony orchestra, I said, yo, y'all waking white America up to this. It's time to revision. People are tired of seeing the old Porgy and Bess and them same show tunes and operas.
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing is that we don't like subscribe to just one rhetoric about what we are, right, and what we sound like, especially. And the country is wide. We have a lot of regions to cover in the sound. So, look, I wish I could program 3 times as much for as much great music as out there. And so I just try to continue as well as I can. But
are you extending the love to our Latin brothers and sisters too?
Of course. I mean, by virtue of also having a project like this, because one of the things you said earlier was like the cats from Harlem who played this in this band, but James Reese Europe went to Puerto Rico to get musicians to be in this band too, right? So it's really important to think about, like a Pan-African way of understanding the music, which is what also Randy Wesson is a part of too. So you have to kind of acknowledge the Caribbean, the way they change our beat, thank God.
Right. That'll do it again for this very special edition of the Pace Report. Reporting live here at Marcus Garvey Park here in Harlem, New York, as part of the 2023 Harlem Week Festivities. I'd like to personally thank the incomparable Jason Moran for his time. Make sure you support this current tribute album to James Reese Europe, From the Dancehall to the Battlefield, which is now available on iTunes as well as Bandcamp. For more information on Jason's upcoming tour dates, please visit him on social media by way of Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I'd like to personally thank the staff and management at Summerstage as well as Marcus Garvey Park for their warm hospitality. As always, people, I can't stress this enough. Please like, share, and subscribe to my videos here on YouTube and Vimeo. Leave comments, as well as follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.